It's very clear which side of the line Harvard is on.
It's easily one of America's most anti-Semitic, hateful universities.
I learned China, so,
I come from China.
The mood is not the greatest among the international students. I'm glad I'm leaving, but
I just love Channel 5, so.
What's up, guys? We're live in Cambridge, Mass. at Harvard University. A lot of people who are pissed off for a different variety of reasons. As y'all know, we're at Ground Zero in the place that Donald Trump calls the #1 hotbed for terrorism. They're grooming anti-Semitic Hamas sympathizers in this very soil, allegedly.
They're very anti-Semitic. Everybody knows they're anti-Semitic.
Anybody here on a student visa should adhere to the laws of the land. If you're here on a student visa, engaged in not merely bad, mean words, but violence, it's time to go back to mom and dad in Syria. It's a shameful institution. Taxpayers shouldn't have to subsidize it.
Harvard has been at the center of a cultural and political debate as Donald Trump has threatened to freeze all international students from enrolling in Harvard in the future as a sort of FU to the campus leadership for allowing anti-Semitic hate speech on campus, and also having so much frickin' DEI and making it hard for Caucasian geniuses and white South Africans to get into Harvard.
We have Americans that want to go there and to other places, and they can't go there because you have 31% foreign.
Trump is kind of doubling down on Harvard.
We spend more money on higher education than any other country. They're turning our students into communists.
He wants Harvard to cap the number of international students at 15%.
I believe in the rule of law, and I believe it is not being respected by the current administration.
It's just a shame what they're doing, trying to control academics in this manner.
You can't deny international students access to education here in America, especially a private university.
if you're currently about to renew your visa, you're kind of screwed.
I wanted to come out and thank Harvard for their courage standing up to Trump. Trump announced, I guess it was like last week or the week before, Harvard can no longer have international students. The current international students on Harvard campus would all have to go home. Harvard said no. They got in front of a judge really fast. The judge basically said, no, you can't do that. You know, he wants to tell Harvard who they can and can't hire and who they can admit, and now he wants to tell them they can't have international students. And Harvard's like, no, and that takes courage.
There's also some protests happening on the outskirts and some Hare Krishna pamphlet advertising. We got a box truck rolling around with the faces of supposedly anti-Semitic students on it.
Unfortunately, as you guys can see, the HarvardHatesJews.com domain has been taken.
Pro-Palestine, Save the Children, Fuck Trump protests happening at the bus stop over there. So we're going to talk to a couple people of all creeds and colors and figure out what the heck's going on at Harvard.
Yeah, so I'm Clive Lawrence. I'm a sophomore at Harvard College studying government, and I'm also a student organizer for various initiatives on campus.
And what's going on right now?
What's going on right now is basically over the past semester, Donald Trump has begun targeting higher education institutions, especially Harvard, revoked Harvard's ability to enroll international students, which is a huge blow to the Harvard community. Harvard currently has around 27% international students, and as a result, he's saying that, you know, we should send people back. They should not be studying here. It's a big chunk of the school. I have friends who are from South Africa. I have friends from Peru, and I think it just kind of shows there is this wide breadth of students from many different regions. It's been trending that way, I think, in the past few decades.
The numbers were increasing dramatically. International students are very important to the finances of Harvard. But he's not just talking about new people coming in next year. He's talking about present students, that they have to leave, that they have to go to another college.
What's the climate among international students?
We mostly try not to talk about it, even amongst ourselves, because it's just too distressing.
And more generally, he's also pursuing research cuts and things of that nature.
I mean, I'm definitely they should all be having their money seized for a lot of the shit they've done. But also there's so much research and money that goes into medical research and those kinds of things that I feel do need to have funding and do need to have a place.
It's really unnerving and created a lot of fear for students.
Anda, from Japan, had no criminal charges on his record, just 2 speeding tickets and a citation for catching one too many fish, his attorney says. The government gave Anda 15 days to leave the country.
What sparked Trump's fixation on Harvard as enemy #1?
I would say 2 things. First is the post-October 7th anti-Semitism claim that's been at the university. I think they're using the campus protests, which happened in the last year, as sort of a scapegoat to allow them to push that agenda.
Dozens of students walked out of class at Harvard University to stand in solidarity with Palestinians.
New protests last night at Columbia University against the war in Gaza.
The anti-Israel protests
protests are getting louder. You can see how big the encampment has grown. It takes up most of the main lawn on campus.
I think the encampments were, in many ways, they felt historic in a way. People really placed the fact that they were in a long line of movements, anti-war movements and civil rights movements in the 60s, anti-apartheid movements in the 90s. It felt very much like students were claiming ownership of what it means to be a university, but Harvard chose to restrict the rules of protest in order to prevent something like from happening again. On top of that, they also punished students who were in the encampment as well. They took names of students every single day to try and punish them, and they did so. Luckily, they got rolled back last summer, but it was still appalling.
So that was a trigger point for Trump to feel like Harvard is harboring terrorism or whatever. They're not following through with their punishment of the pro-Hamas sympathizers.
Basically, yeah, he's calling us pro-Hamas. We've been called terrorists and sympathizers and all that stuff. It really isn't borne out by any data at all. Not only at Harvard, but even generally, the vast majority of pro-Palestinian protests have been peaceful. Many student groups have organized and said very clearly they're pursuing nonviolent action and just calling out the genocide in Gaza. It's not anti-Semitic to do so. And many Jewish students on this campus have also led that protest movement. It's very clear that this is a multi-faith sort of coalition.
Also, as a Jewish person, this issue is particularly important to me, as I've seen the ways in which Jewish grief has been weaponized and Jewish safety has been co-opted to excuse this murder.
I think that people have really seen and latched onto Harvard as a place for radical extremist views, and I think Trump is embodying that sentiment in many ways and really pushing the university to restrict student speech, to punish students for political views, things like that. It's really not great at all.
They've fired faculty that have been teaching courses related to Palestine. When their students are doxxed by some of the people that come around today, they take pictures, they put them up on these big trucks, they drive them around to their neighborhood. Does Harvard do anything to protect those students?
I was one of the students who was doxxed after October 7th. There was a student letter that 34 student organizations signed, and that ended up causing a huge global kind of uproar, and there were trucks and names and stuff leaked to the public in terms of who signed them.
Yeah, so was your face on the truck?
My face was not on the truck, my name was.
Did that lead to any kind of harassment?
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of emails, messages, people kind of looking at me weirdly on the street. Whenever I wore Thea, people have sort of tried to talk to me and stuff. Oh, my name's right there.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
You're one of Harvard's leading anti-Semites?
I wouldn't say that at all.
Other universities have taken minor steps to hold anti-Semites accountable. Here at Harvard, two of the most violent kids who got 80 hours of community service for their actions were rewarded by the university. There's no reason to give prestigious fellowships to a student who allegedly assaulted his fellow student and got community service. You shouldn't be rewarding anti-Semites. It's easily one of America's most anti-Semitic, hateful universities, and whereas many of the students here have apologized for their actions, 5 of the students graduating today have never apologized for what they've done.
What's up, people? Let's take a quick break from the protests to see how the media has been covering Trump's war against Harvard University. As we know, different outlets push different agendas, shaping the story to fit their own narrative, which is why independent reporting matters, and we here at Channel 5 are 100% committed to bringing y'all raw, unfiltered coverage straight from the streets. But before we hit the streets, we get informed, using what, you might ask? Ground News. Ground News is a dope-ass news aggregate that lets you see exactly how different media outlets, left, right, and center, are covering the same story. Here, as you can see, using the Ground News bias distribution tool, the left and right are covering this issue quite differently. On the left, MSNBC says Trump's attacks on Harvard are part of the administration's wider war on knowledge. And on the very right side of the spectrum, right reports Harvard's getting their ass kicked. One more thing I love about Ground News is how it helps you figure out what's genuinely newsworthy by showing you how many sources, numerically, are covering each story. For example, this story about the Trump administration blocking Harvard from enrolling international students has over 650 news sources, so you know it's legit. That kind of transparency lets you judge an article's credibility before repeating it in a conversation and realizing you've been fed a one-sided narrative. Another feature we love to use here at Channel 5 is called the Blind Spot tool, which shows you the stories that might not be appearing in your typical media bubble. It's easy to get trapped in an algorithmic echo chamber nowadays, and Ground News helps you break out of that cycle by surfacing stories that you might otherwise miss. And we here at Channel 5 can't miss a thing, which is why we trust Ground News to help us cut straight through the noise. And right now, you can subscribe for 40% off the Unlimited Access Vantage plan, bringing the cost down to less than $5 a month. Just scan the QR code right here, or click the link below in the description and pinned comment to sign up. Supporting Ground News means supporting us, which means that that we can keep making videos like this and giving y'all coverage that isn't watered down or dictated by corporate interests. So check it out, stay informed, and don't let the media tell you what to think. All right, back to the streets of Harvard.
So you don't think that opposing Israel is anti-Semitic?
No, I don't think it is.
Trying to stop genocide is not anti-Semitism. Harvard uses anti-Semitism to keep its students in line and to make sure that the uprising of students, which was so important last year, didn't happen again.
Palestine is very inconvenient for Harvard in many ways to talk about because it exposes some of the contradictions in the university, I would say.
Once you get in trouble here for opposing genocide, future job opportunities are going to be limited because the people on the board of Harvard are connected to every other major employer and institution in the state.
So it's creating a footprint for you that's going to have you run into roadblocks later in your career path.
It does, and people think of that, because they're paying off these student loans, and they want to make sure that they have a secure future. Now, some people say genocide is more important than that. To them, we really appreciate it.
So I do think there is this air of what's called a Palestinian exception to free speech, where people don't feel like they're able to speak out in support of Palestine.
And why do you think that is?
I think it's part of a legacy at Harvard that prioritizes performative values, things like diversity and inclusion that are important, but it's more performative than the actual action.
And I think that anti-Semitism stuff on campus, Harvard has done a whole investigation and they've made changes. I think Trump is using that. I don't think Trump really cares.
I think the other factor is probably just the wokeness DEI point in general that people have seen Harvard as this elite institution, and that's part of his goal.
It's a shameful institution. Taxpayers shouldn't have to subsidize it.
So how exactly does it work in terms of taxpayers subsidizing universities?
With grants being given for research, as well as Pell Grants that go to cover tuition. But at the end of the day, there's no taxpayer in America who should be forced to subsidize anti-Semitism.
They hoard wealth in so many ways. I don't think administrators should be making as much money as they make. I mean, in general, I don't think it should be as expensive as it is. It's so inaccessible.
The DEI thing, that's what it was. We want to make sure that you're not oppressing white people.
Guys, are you seeing this? You guys seeing what I'm seeing? New England Hong Kong Festival? Holy shit. I could be wrong, but I think Hong Kong is in a different fucking country. I don't know if we can trust those people. Which presents a serious threat to both myself as a Caucasian genius trying to get into Harvard. Congratulations. And to the greater American diaspora across the world. Why isn't there a fucking Boston Festival in Hong Kong? I'm just asking questions. Is that illegal? Feels illegal sometimes, especially here. I see you have a sign. Can you tell us about it?
Well, I am a retired immigration judge. I couldn't do this if I were still sitting on the bench. And I believe in the rule of law, and I believe it is not being respected by the current administration. So I'm here in solidarity with their resistance to what I consider overreach, and I believe illegal overreach of the Trump administration.
What are the biggest points of overreach that you would name?
Certainly the challenge to First Amendment rights of academic freedom, what they can teach, how they can teach it, the cutting off of grants. That is the power of the purse. It is not an executive branch power. Trump is acting as though it's his personal bank account. It's not.
We give them billions of dollars, which is ridiculous. We do grants, which we're probably not going to be doing much grants anymore to Harvard.
That money has been appropriated and assigned for specific causes, and that needs to be honored, and it's not being honored. So they're litigating that. Another is in the Kilmar Abrego Garcia case.
Well, the Supreme Court says the Trump administration must facilitate the return of a Maryland man deported to a Salvadorian prison. This follows the Trump administration admitting Kilmar Abrego Garcia was mistakenly sent to that prison due to what they call an administrative error.
An allegation does not a felon make.
And for an uninformed viewer, what's happening right now in terms of Harvard pushing back against Trump?
Well, they're saying, no, you can't take the funding. No, you can't prohibit our First Amendment rights.
Is it illegal to deport a student based upon their political beliefs?
I assume you're talking about Rumessa Oskirk.
Story we're following this morning, a federal judge in Massachusetts on Friday blocked the government from deporting a Tufts University graduate student who was arrested last week by immigration officers and had her visa revoked.
I believe not. I believe that they have First Amendment right to state their opinions. That is granted even if you are not a citizen of the United States. If you are here, you can do that.
I would say in the first half of the semester this spring, they were kind of following the Columbia playbook. In Columbia, they basically acquiesced to Trump in many ways, giving over student info, things like that. Harvard seemed poised to do the same, and I actually led a rally in early April calling on Harvard to do more. They did end up doing more through lawsuits and things like that. So it is a step forward, but it's still like not as much as I think the university could. I think there's always more they can do to support students, and we haven't seen that as much on our campus.
We very much appreciate, obviously, Harvard being willing to stand up to Trump. But that is not the main issue going on. The main issue, as far as we're concerned, is that while Harvard is doing a good job fighting Trump, they are complicit with the war in Gaza, with the war and genocide.
When people are protesting and people are angry at each other, that is a low consciousness. But a higher consciousness is one of happiness, peace, bliss, and serenity. It's a practical solution to raise one's consciousness to realize why we fight with each other and how to actually overcome problems with a spiritual solution.
Why do you think people fight with each other?
So basically we fight with each other because we think that we're the bodies. Someone thinks I'm Palestinian, someone thinks I'm Jewish. Someone thinks I'm black, you're white. Someone thinks I'm African, you're Japanese. But actually, the body is kind of like this nice blue shirt that Andrew's wearing. Just today he's wearing a blue shirt. Tomorrow he might wear a red shirt. He doesn't identify with it. But if we identify with it, I'm Jewish, you're Palestinian, I'm African, you're this, I'm that, then naturally the concept of mine and yours comes. And then fighting happens. But if we realize we're the soul inside of the body, and actually we're all servants, then actually there'll be less fighting. So we try to raise to this consciousness by chanting, by sound vibration, by music, and by blessed food also.
Channel 5 live worldwide, Hollywood and Vine.
Fuck the authority, Channel 5 News.
Channel 55. We don't fuck with custers. And 5 is the best number.
Hey, you. That's right, you. Are you a documentary filmmaker or a journalist whose work is being held captive by the fat cats at the Hollywood studios, or even worse, being held back by a tyrannical parent organization like Vice, Vox, and Mother Jones? Well, I have great news for you. Those days are over, because we are launching our own independent documentary platform called C5.now.
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 C5.now. It's going to be available on smart TV, iOS, and just a regular old computer. A lot of you guys might wonder, what makes C5.now different than Peacock or HBO Max or Tubi? And the answer is residuals. I know some of you guys may think that residuals is an HPPD symptom, but that's not the case. It means the proportion of streaming revenue that you get paid after your movie is on a platform. Most people get 10% or 20% of residuals, but if you got a film on C5.now, you're gonna get 55% or more of residuals. Yeah, it's gonna cost money. It's gonna cost $5.55 a month, much like the Dear Kelly film. But the thing is, that money's gonna go straight to the director, straight to the executive producer, straight to the people who actually put money into the project itself. So we don't gotta fucking break off fat chunks of change for all these fat cats telling us how to think. So if you have something you want to submit, just do me a favor, email me that to submissions@channel5.news, and you too can be a part of C5.now. We're not going to change your edit, but we will give some feedback if it's not that good, but it's almost there. Maybe less music. Put a little bit less music on there if you want to, but you don't have to. And that's key to Channel5.now. Suggestion, not enforcement. And the best thing about C5.now is you don't got to be 18 to sign up.
Content for all ages, not just adults.
We're gonna have documentaries for kids about the history of Roblox or how to succeed in Minecraft. Maybe we'll have some Mr. Beast stuff on there, not sure. Maybe even other languages one day. Mandarin Chinese.
Even if I spoke a different language, I'd subscribe.
Tagalog, that's the main language of the Philippines. Speak a bit of Navajo if you want. And the best thing about Channel 5 and C5.now is we're gonna take those proceeds and support local business. Puedo comprar dos. Gracias, amigo.
C5.now, everybody.